Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We're Screwed. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr. With me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty fucking good. How's everybody tonight?
And we have a special guest tonight. It says here, Little Panda. So I'm going to introduce you, Little Panda, and I'll let you say hi to the audience. If you want to be called something other than Little Panda, let us know. But that's what it says there on the screen. So,
Yeah.
floor is yours, dear.
The username says Little Panda. Most people call me Panda. I go by Brimstone. And pretty much me. I'm a mom and I'm a part time author. I'm here as a guest.
So, what do you want to talk about tonight? Let's start it like that. Any subject on the planet that you want to talk about, whatever it is, we can go.
Mm, I'll wing it, but my gut is telling me astrology. That's my forte. Okay, so I have seen some really strange stuff that's been on Google here lately about new constellations that have been found, along with solar flares. So I guess we could just discuss eco, or we could just discuss astrology, wherever you see this conversation going.
As far as astrology, I like looking at your horoscopes and all that kind of crap. I think that's a bunch of BS. Honestly, that's my opinion on it. A lot of people throughout history have thought it was a good thing, cool even. One of my heroes growing up was Ronald Reagan, and he was famously into astrology, like more than
Yes.
just into astrology. I mean, he had a
Yes.
psychic on call. You know what I mean? So I'm probably in the
He removed
minority when I
us.
say that. But one interesting thing I do enjoy with astrology, speaking of constellations and new constellations showing up in the sky and everything, is how important those constellations were to ancient people, and how important it was for them to mark those occurrences in the sky. You know, like if you look at let's look at some of the monoliths. Like probably the most famous monolith on the planet is the Sphinx, right, and the pyramids. If you look at the Sphinx and the pyramids, they line up with different constellations depending on the epoch you're in. Okay, where they think that it actually was built, what the archaeologists say, I don't think is when it was actually built, because if you look at what they say, I believe it lined up with Scorpio at that point, which doesn't make
Right.
any freaking sense because it was a lion. Like the Sphinx was originally a lion before they recarved the face into the face of a pharaoh. It was a lion statue. That's why the whole body is a lion, and then it is recarved. Now they might have recarved the face of the pharaoh during that period of time. That's highly possible. But I think if you look back to when that would have lined up with the constellation Leo, right? At that point in time was like around 12,000 years ago, 12, 13,000 years ago. I think that might have been when that was actually built, because then it makes sense. You would, because what they did all the time with the pyramids, they would line it up so that it would face like the North Star or something like that during the equinoxes, right? Those kind of deals. They're always doing that kind of stuff. If you look at all the monoliths on the planet, they're always like that. So I think
Absolutely.
that the Sphinx, there would have been no reason for it to be any different, especially considering the pyramids lined up, right? So of course they're going to line up the Sphinx. It's what they did with all of these things. So if you're building a giant lion statue, what better constellation for it to line up with than Leo? And that only happened in recent history around 13,000 years ago. Now, all of it is a cycle. Like when you talk about new constellations coming into appearance, that's because they're constantly moving, right? It's on a cycle and it will repeat itself. It's a long ass cycle,
It really
but
is.
it will repeat itself and we'll get right back to exactly where we are now again, tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of years from now. So it all repeats. So it makes sense that they're all kind of moving. And at some points, there won't be like a North Star, a star that we look at that points due north. There won't be that in some epochs. Sometimes we're in between. We just happen to be good now. You know what I mean? But it won't always be like that. But to me, as far as astrology goes, that's the only thing that is really interesting to me about astrology, and the only thing that I really know much about it, because I don't follow astrology that much, because I think it's kind of BS in a way. I'm not saying that
I,
there's absolutely nothing to astrology, but the idea that just because the stars in the sky were in a certain order when you were born means your personality is going to be this, that, or the other thing is stupid. I mean,
thank you.
I think it's
Yes.
stupid. You know what I mean? So, what do you think about astrology? What do you have to say about it?
Honestly, I so agree with you on that. And I'm glad I found a person that at least agrees with that. I mean, I'm with you on the horoscopes. I think that they're bullshit. I mean, honestly, it's if you want to sit there and define a person by their characteristic traits just because of their zodiac sign, I don't think that that's a thing. I don't think that you should sit there and look at somebody's constellation and then automatically assume by their zodiac sign that that's who they are. A person, regardless of who they are and their story, shouldn't be just defined by, if their zodiac sign was a sloth, for example, it shouldn't be defined by the symbolism of laziness. Um, but on the other half of that topic, I found it interesting how you brought up the lion and the specific positionings because I believe in the same thing. If they had specific like placements at that time, then they were bound to be there for a reason. Sacred geometry or past it, or spiritual belief and past it, it was placed in that place for a specific reason and done that way for a specific reason. And this is where I also believe that sacred geometry was kind of in there somewhere because, the pyramids had specific meanings and they had their specific placements along with other things that were placed in certain places, Mayan, Aztec, Greece, everywhere that had like a polar ping in this world that connected to any type of spiritual belief. And it had a meaning in history, period. And it could go even beyond astrology, way before people even adapted to the meaning of a calendar or the years as they pass, day and night. That's all the Neolithic area knew was day or night. So that's the way that I see it.
I think I might even challenge you a little bit on that.
Okay.
As far as you're talking Neolithic, you're talking ancient people, correct? Would that be a
Mhm.
fair assessment?
Oh yeah.
The general idea by archaeologists, I think, is wrong because they look at like the Clovis people like that. Uh, they say everybody back in that time period was hunter gatherers, and all they did was walk around with like spear tips and hunt things and try to survive and gather. But that simply cannot possibly be true. I'm not saying there weren't some, but if you look at a lot of these monoliths were built before the end of the ice age. So you're talking during a time period where they're saying that all mankind are simply hunter gatherers. They hadn't even invented agriculture yet, according to
Right.
archaeologists, right? So these people don't even know how to frickin' farm yet. But you're telling me they're building pyramids and they're building these monoliths that we can't build today? These amazing things and lining them up with such surgical precision that they will allow the light to come in during the fall equinox, right? Through a certain little block and shine on a certain stone. That's done by people who are just walking around trying to figure out how the hell do I find lettuce? Where the hell's the lettuce around here? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's impossible. Look, look
Way
at
beyond
look at the
impossible.
Aztecs and the Mayan civilizations down in Central America, South America, right? When we got here to America, to this area, they said, well, there's nobody there. That's because they were already dead long ago because other explorers came and brought disease from Europe that they weren't used to, and it killed all their asses off. But if you look at the Amazon, right? The Amazon, everybody looks at it as this amazing jungle. It's a rainforest. It's amazing. It's this jungle. It's this. pinnacle of nature, but it's not a pinnacle of nature at all. It's man-made. The Amazon is farmland, dude. That's orchards. There are trees there that were planted by man in a grid pattern, in a way that they would be able to harvest and they'd be able to get food from there. You know, anybody knows that's ever done any farming. I've done a lot of farming. I'm a redneck from the mountains of Virginia, right? I hunt and grow things to survive, like most of my life. Anybody who's ever done anything like that knows that if you have a field and you plant your field, if you leave that field alone and you don't plant for a year, every damn thing grows in that thing. I mean, you will get some residual crop from what you were growing, but you'll also get all kinds of weeds and all kinds of stuff from everywhere else. Next thing you know, you got trees popping up, you got all kinds of shit popping up. You know what I mean? Because that land that you were farming is fertile. It's got good topsoil. It's been taken care of. And the way it kind of works with let's say you got a field, right? Just any old field. Doesn't have to be a farm field. Let's say like in the plains of America when the buffalo were here, eating the grass, pooping everywhere, right? You got a normal a field, a plain. What happens is you get grasses that grow there. But you also get like little vines and weeds and stuff like that end up being bushes. So then you end up with bushes on top of the grass. Well, from the bushes come trees. Right? And I don't mean they give birth. I mean, if you look at the soil biology, there's a difference in the soil biology between grassland and forest land. Right? There's different levels of nitrogen, different levels of potassium, all that kind of stuff in the soil. It's necessary for it to grow certain things. Like anybody who's ever tried to grow blueberries knows you need acidic-ass soil to grow blueberries. If you don't have enough acidity in your soil, those blueberries ain't growing. I don't care how many bushes you plant. You're not getting any blueberries, right? Trust me, I know. Exactly. I have failed planting blueberries more years than I can ever imagine, and I'm still trying to grow them bastards. So, if you don't have the right soil biology, you're not growing the right things, right? And there's a difference in the soil biology between plains and forest land. So, if you look at what's growing in the Amazon, the reason I said all that crap, that probably doesn't mean shit to anybody, right? The reason all that was said, because if you look in the Amazon, you look at the different kind of trees that are growing, the tropical fruits, the mangoes, all those kind of things, right, that are growing in that area. They come from what was once a field area. Because if you look at the stuff that's growing around it, you need certain soil biology to grow those things, and it's a progression that comes up. So what that tells me is it was an overrun area that they burned out most likely, because that biochar makes excellent fertilizer. And that's something that ancient people have used throughout history is the burn method in order to clear land and to make it fertile for planting. So most likely they were burning areas, making it so that they would grow, and then they would plant crops in it, and eventually it grew over. And I guarantee you they had orchards in there and everything like that, and that's where we're getting a lot of this stuff that's in the Amazon now. That's why if you get lost in the Amazon, unless you get eaten by something, which is very, very possible because everything there is trying to kill you, but if you can survive everything trying to kill you, there's plenty of damn food in the Amazon forest to eat, because at one time, that's exactly what it was. It was a food supply for the Aztec people. Okay, now, the reason I went into all of that shit that nobody cares about is to say, you're telling me that, well, you're not telling me, but archaeologists tell me that during that time period, when all of this was taking place, they were hunter-gatherers. They hadn't even figured out agriculture yet. I say the rainforest proves that they figured out agriculture. Not only did they figure out agriculture, but they had the best soil that this planet has ever known. Okay, it's way beyond composting. It's way beyond anything we do today. They had compost all their garbage, right? They would throw their clay pots and stuff down in there. They would throw their poop down in there, right? Their human excrement down into the thing. They would throw the bones and the remains of animals that they had eaten, stuff like that down in there. It was basically a giant trash pile, but it's all organic matter. So that stuff all broke down in a giant compost heap, and it created soil that we can't match today. It's the most amazing. Scientists today are still trying to figure out how to do that. You know, they had that shit down. And they were planting like crazy. There's places in the world where they literally built out into the water these floating islands, and they planted on that. You know what I mean? All of this shit has taken place during a time when archaeologists are saying, oh yeah, they're just a bunch of retards walking around with spears trying to poke something. It's just not true. And then if that's the case, who built all this shit? Who built Stonehenge? Who built, You know, the Easter Island giants, who built the Aztec pyramids, who built all this stuff if these people were just hunter gatherers? Hunter gatherers are not going to
Aliens.
be able to. No, alien, get the fuck out of here with aliens. Hunter gatherers are not going to
What?
be able to like move gigantic stones one place or the other. You know what I mean? That takes technology. That
Right.
takes intelligence. That takes planning. You know, the precision that the stones were cut with the pyramid, just as one tiny example of that, we can't match today with laser technology. It's freaking amazing stuff, you know?
It is.
So here's what I think, and then I'll throw back over to you to get your opinion on it. I think that mankind has done this over and over and over and over again. I think what happens is we build up, we get civilization going. Uh, as you know, all that shit compounds with invention, with technology. It's exponential. It grows faster and faster and faster as you go. The further along you get, the quicker new things come because you build upon your former inventions, right? So I think we do this over and over and over again. We get to a point to where our technology is amazing, probably even past what we are now. And then something happens. Either a giant flaming rock comes from space, or some little microscopic bug that we don't even see kills us off, or something, whatever it is, something happens. And I think it's different throughout times. Like if you look at the end of the Ice Age, I think that was a comet that hit. It exploded in our atmosphere, went into 3 or 4 different pieces probably, hit, and caused all kinds of havoc. You had explosions, you had massive, massive energy release with fire. That caused the melting of the ice caps in the Ice Age. That caused worldwide flooding. That caused volcanic eruptions because of the impact into the planet. And I think that's the cataclysm. That's the Noah's Ark story. That's what that is. That's that time period when the world was 100% flooded. And everybody died almost, except for a tiny little group of people. You know, the Bible says it was Noah, his sons, and their family that survived it, right? Science tells us, when you look at the DNA studies done on human beings and on animals, that during that exact period of time when the earth flooded, when the Bible says that Noah's Ark happened, right? During that time period, you had all of life that is here now, all other than like sea life, but all like animals and birds and stuff and man. All of that comes from either a single pair or a small group that had their origin in that exact same time period. Same with people. All of us come from either a pair or a small group that comes from that exact time period that the world flooded because of that comet. So science is in agreement with what the Bible says, which is an agreement with pretty much every culture on Earth. Every single one of them has a flood theory, like a flood story in their mythos and their mythologies, right? Every single one. So I think what's happening there is not that, oh, well, this religion got it right, this religion got it right. I think what's happening is you got everybody on Earth at the time that are telling the story of, hey, this happened. This was an event that happened, right? And for the longest time, everybody said you were crazy if you believed that. It was nonsense. But science has gotten to a point where we're able to actually prove, yes, the world was 100% flooded. You can see it in the geological record. You can see it in the layers when you do soil samples. You can see it by the burn layer that tells us there was massive fires and all this stuff that happened during that time. You can see by the compounding of fossils in the layer and up in the Alaska in the boneyard up there, the permafrost that they're melting off with water. They're pulling out mammoths and saber-toothed cats and giant sloths and cave bears, all kinds of cool shit out of there. Like, all of this stuff happened like that, quick. You know what I mean? It's all in agreement. And you can't tell me that after that happened and we start over with a small group of people and build back up, you can't tell me that the stuff that was built wasn't built before then. And the people that were there before then didn't have advanced technology. You know, they had to have had advanced technology to build the stuff that they built. And not just the physical technology to be able to build it, to be able to move the stones, cut the stones, those kind of things, right? That's hard enough. We can't do that now. Okay, that's hard enough. But the intelligence and the knowledge of the cosmos, in order to precisely match those things up with constellations during different times of the year, and to understanding that it is cyclical, that it is a cycle that keeps repeating. That's amazing.
It
Amazing.
is.
What dumbass walking around trying to poke stuff with a stick do you know that can do that?
Not one.
I mean, that's
Not
amazing
one.
stuff. You know, so your commentary on that.
Honestly, They say by some theories that the brain didn't really have the capacity during those days and times of those eras. But honestly, if you think about it, how people were able to adapt and survive, they had to at least have the same brain capacity that we do now. You know, it wouldn't make any sense if they weren't able to rub two rocks together to make a fire. It wouldn't make any sense if they were just going duh while they do cave drawings. You know, they did the cave drawings to tell their history, to tell their stories, and to find those types of significant things anywhere, whether it be cave drawings, whether it be drawings that are embedded into stones on the earth, whether it be hieroglyphs or whatever it is. You know, there were scribes that just predate, and in some way, shape, or form, it was bound to mean something to our history and why things are the way that they are. I mean, honestly, if they did have some technology back in those days, you had to have some understanding that these types of things were there and what reason they were there for. And if human beings in those days were, you know, quote unquote, that crazy and didn't have the understanding, then they wouldn't know what it is. They would be completely foreign to all the things that were going on, and that's where you're like stumped. But to the human understanding, that's where the unknown comes in. You try to find reason or cause or effect or any kind of ripple or answer in any type of those situations because you're just like, oh, there's something new. Kind of like they tell the story of the caveman with fire. It's like, oh, there's fire, but it's the same aspect. I think it's the same thing.
Here's here's the ripple that you wanted to hear. Because I have a way different opinion. Here's why.
That's okay.
From the 1900s, like around probably the 30s or 40s when Roswell happened, you know, the balloon that they said wrecked and it was really aliens. Um, if you look at it, even before that, we didn't have like big things that happen other than cars. We didn't have all, and if you look at stuff now, look at where we weren't supposed to be where we're doing 3D now, and we weren't supposed to do that to 2025 or 35 or some that we're already going over that now. I don't think that it was us. I think we got help. I think what happened and what you're seeing, if you look at some of those things that's written on the walls, they have things that's coming out of the sky. So I mean, that's why my opinion is we were, like you were saying, rock stones, but we were a little bit more than that. We learned how to build civilizations. They showed we had piping, especially in the Egyptian times. They actually did. They actually had the system and everything. They had bathrooms and toilets. Now they knew how to do all that, but I think we got help even then by aliens or whatever you want to call them. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was James's belief. Maybe it was the Watchers that came out and weren't supposed to show us, and they did. And now they're demons. That's another theory. Or like Brim's religion, whatever her belief is, she believes in the fates, so she believes that the goddess and gods had something to do with it. I believe a whole different way than both of you, but I believe in both of it. I kind of believe it, honestly. We all believe in our own theories, and it kind of goes that way. And I think that we got help by aliens, but that doesn't mean that the gods don't exist. It doesn't say in anything that we don't have other people or any planets or any, even in the Bible, it doesn't say that aliens don't exist. So it
Right.
wouldn't matter anyway. So if there's all these planets that we have, and you guys are talking about all this stuff, us being the only pebble, and they just said, NASA just said Mars has living something there. Now they're coming. I sent it to you, I think, the other day, that Mars has living.
Yeah, they were talking about that they found signs of ancient life. Not
Yeah.
life that's
Oh
there
yeah.
now, but life that existed in the past. But we knew
So
that already. I talked about that long. And this is a different discovery, but
yeah,
we had evidence that there was life in the oceans on Mars
yeah.
10, 15 years ago at least.
But
Yeah. I'd read about the living organisms. I
yeah,
remember that when it came out.
so that already proves we're not the only thing. So
Oh
it,
yeah.
it, it and then that giant ship's still coming here in 16 days or November. The aliens are coming, and that's supposed to be the 7 mile fleet. Now it's the 20 mile Death Star coming. They're gonna NASA's scared. NASA's panicking. I was like, and he works for NASA. That's why I'm laughing about it. Or he knows people in NASA because he built stuff for NASA. He helped make the Mars. He and his dad worked for the Pentagon, so we do know stuff. We just don't say it because we've already gotten screwed before for talking about stuff we weren't. They monetized our account. We used to have thousands of people. We were really popular, and because we were talking about stuff, they didn't want us, so they monetized us. So that's why we are getting our people back. We are very well known through the whole paranormal world, but the reason why we're not on anything because we don't lie, and that's why I tell everybody when we do these shows, we do this one, we're screwed's a lot different, and people come on here and, well, what's going on? I thought you guys were going to talk about paranormal. Well, we're not. This is kind of a discussion of paranormal, would probably be on Staring in the Abyss, but we're screwed is a whole different subject, guys, and that's why I want people to know. And I'll go back to what we were talking about, so they don't get them mixed up, because I think some people get them mixed up. I only see Staring in the
Real
Abyss on.
quick before you switch
Yeah,
subjects,
yeah.
clarify. I do not work for NASA right now.
Oh,
I
I
worked on
thought you.
some projects when I was younger.
Yes.
I do
Yeah.
not have any affiliation with them now. I haven't
Yeah.
for many, many moons. Just
Okay.
wanted to clear that up before we got too far and I forgot, because I'm getting old and I forget things.
Yeah, yeah. I forgot you don't work for them anymore. But that's what this show is. So I forgot to say something earlier before we started. People were getting confused because when they go on, they'll see Staring in the Abyss, and I'm like, no, you got to look in the channel on Spotify, and you'll find We're Screwed. This is a whole different show. But what they're talking about, this is like a paranormal show. Fuck. Um, um, it really is. If you think about it, it has aliens, and we're talking about religion, and we're talking about astrology. So it pretty much is. But no, I don't believe that.
I
I
want to
believe that
talk
what we
about,
show.
before you switch again, I want to talk about the cave paintings you were talking about.
Okay, good.
Because you were talking about showing things from the sky and everything, and yes, they do, 100%. I'm not saying they don't. Um, but also, another interesting thing that they show that I would like both of you to weigh in on is that they show man and dinosaur together. And we have been taught all of our lives that they are separated by millions of years. That during the time of the dinosaurs, we were a tiny little shrew-like animal, which is fucking nonsense. And that we somehow evolved from like a mouse-like thing up to what we are now. That during the time of the dinosaurs, that's just the dumbest shit I've ever seen. There's no proof whatsoever of evolution at all, ever. There's never been a transitional species found. They tried to lie and say Lucy was, but Lucy, you know why they said Lucy was? Because of her feet. We found these feet, and the feet look like there's no way she could have been walking upright with those feet, right? But then you actually look into it. Where did they find the feet? Over 60 miles away from where they found Lucy. So somehow this ancient bitch drops dead, and her feet detach from her body and run 60 miles and fall in a pit over there. And
Yeah.
somehow they say, oh, well, they're the same feet. It's absolute bullshit. And when you actually look at what Lucy actually was, she
Right.
wasn't some transitional species. It was a bunch of bullshit. And there are actual in stone human footprints with dinosaur prints on top of them.
Right.
You can see them down there in, I think it's New Mexico, I believe it was. New Mexico or Arizona. I think it was New Mexico. There's human footprints with dinosaur prints on top, which means that human footprint had to be there when that dinosaur comes tramping along, right? You
Yeah.
look at all of the old cave paintings, They have dinosaurs in them. A lot of them do, which tells you those people were not just making up some creature that hadn't been discovered yet. They saw those things. That's why they drew them. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
every civilization, every culture on Earth has stories of dragons. And what the
That's
hell is a dragon if it ain't a friggin' dinosaur? You know what I mean? That's a dinosaur to me. So
Its own right.
that's what I'd like you guys to comment on. I'd like you to weigh in and get your thoughts on it. That do you think that mankind and dinosaurs lived together at the same time on this planet, and the flood wiped them out? During that time period, they got wiped out. Because notice, scientists tell you what wiped out the dinosaurs was an asteroid, right? This asteroid hit and fucked everything up. What caused the flood? Pieces of a comet that broke off. Kind of the same deal, right? It's the exact same layer geologically they're talking about. They're using the asteroid theory of the dinosaurs to explain why dinosaurs aren't here. And if you look at the geology, you're talking flood, right? It's the same patterns. So why do they think that dinosaurs and humans did? And I'll tell you why I think that is because they can't explain if they say dinosaurs and humans existed together, what happened to evolution? They want us to believe we
Right.
were a mouse at that time and that we evolved up into monkeys and then evolved into human beings, but there has never been a transitional species found of anything ever, of any animal, any human, anything ever found. If you look at the earliest human remains ever found, they're exactly the same as we are now. There's no difference between us. They had the same brain capacity. Everything is the same, which means we
Exactly.
ain't evolved at all from then. We're the same now. So if we're the same now, and what you're capable of doing now, even the dumbest amongst us, what we're capable of doing now, they would be able to do then. The Bible talks about the Tower of Babel. Do you know that story? Where mankind's technology was getting too great. Their wisdom, their intelligence was getting too great. Their ego was getting too great to the point that they were trying to build a tower that could reach God. So God split the people apart, destroyed the tower, split the people apart, confused their languages. Now, to me, what would destroy a giant tower that's being built, cause everybody on the earth to be separated from each other, and end up with different languages and everything? That's got to be a natural disaster, right? That's got to be some sort of cataclysm that ends civilization.
Right.
In order to and if you look at, you talked about geography earlier, probably when we were off air. We probably weren't even on air at that point. But if you look at what, remember Pangea, the giant landmass of all the continents put together?
Yep. That's what I was just thinking about
Now
too.
look at the story of the Tower of Babel when God separates everybody and confuses their languages. How would you keep them separate? You would have to split the land apart so they couldn't get to each other. Because during that time period, maybe they didn't have boats, because why the hell would you need boats? You're all in one freaking landmass, all together. You don't need to
Right.
go travel anywhere. You're all there. You split it apart, all of a sudden, my buddy Joey's way the hell over there. My buddy Frank's way over there. Sally, her ass went down there. So now I want to go see my friends. I got to build something to float so I can get over there. You know what I mean? But it's interesting to me how all of this always lines up. When you look at the science and you look at the Bible, it matches, which is so damn cool. But anyway, back to the dinosaurs and people. I'll let you guys go.
yes. I believe it. I believe it. That's true. I also believe like if you've seen like we're talking about aliens and stuff they had in the drawings, they also had like weird monsters that they had like half snake man and half deer and you know what and they had why would they pick those being there? So that's another thing. Do you believe that? And yes, I do believe dinosaurs and at some kind of dinosaur. It may not be the ones from millions of years. It was some kind of species. But I was going to ask you if dinosaurs exist, do you think they evolved and left and they're the real aliens? Did you ever think about that theory?
It makes you wonder. Honestly, when it comes to the flood and those theories, and I'm going to use the dragon as an example here. If you think about the mythology and the lore that they tell that they find the sediments and the remains of the dragons and other, imprints and everything within the sediments of the ocean. So this then goes to foreshadow in events that those things were there at one point or another, like the fossils. Like the fossils that you said showed human footprints and dinosaur footprints in the same place. Similar to, I guess, in different cases, you would say that there's the existence of the different crystals and everything people used for whatever they wanted to use them for. But did they know how to use them? Was the thing. That's where the technologically advanced tries to find its way in there. Was there's these rocks that are so foreign on a planet that was within a solar system that's also within another galaxy. I fully believe that humans are intermission is a thing because those rocks were made from something that was made from this earth. The energy is coming from somewhere. The reliable healing properties, or I guess you could say the advancements of what these things were meant to do from the first place they were placed here, whether it be an asteroid or it could be something that flew from another planet to here, or it could be the fact that it was already here. But again, there's multiple layers of the earth. So you have different things that are being discovered still because, drilling, fracking, things that I don't agree that they really don't need to be doing to the earth, but they do it anyway. But it's just that so many things are there to create these vibrations, these frequencies, these things for all of us that are so foreign that were then created. And then now we're just now starting to learn more and adapt as our society around us, which would now come into AI, is just advancing way more than what it was. Because you're thinking that it's going to be like the Jetsons, flying cars and everything, but no. I mean, I can't say that we won't have flying cars at one point, but it's the thing that it went from the fact that we had stone pillars to now that we have technologically advanced things to replace humans. And then it's a whole new thing.
And I think that's probably happened over and over and over again, most of this stuff. You
It
know,
really
you,
has.
you talk about crystals. I think the secret to the crystal technology, and that might be a line that mankind went down at one point. I talk about ancient civilizations and advanced technology. It doesn't always have to be what we do. It may
Right.
their technology might not be based on microchips like ours are. Theirs might have been based on crystals. And if you really look at crystals, what do crystals do? They harness light and redirect it and store it, and they harness sound
Exactly.
waves and re redirect them, right, and store them and amplify them. So both of those things have the same thing in common. It's wave patterns of energy. Okay, light, sound, radio waves, same things. They all produce an undulation, right? The wave pattern. That's how your microwave works. It's just literally radio waves that are bombarding your food and vibrating the atoms of your food like this. And that creates friction, which causes them to heat up and cook from the inside out. That's how a microwave works, you know? So it's not a stretch to say they had that kind of technology. And that might even be what the pyramids were. Yes, the pyramids were probably a religious site as well. But Tesla seemed to think that call-ins in 15 minutes, so we're going to make this quick. Tesla seems to think that they were giant batteries and that they were used to harness the electromagnetism of the earth and create electricity using that and light them up and run the entire civilization. And a little more credence to that theory, I think, was added by the ground penetrating radar studies that were just done not too long ago. Everybody talked about it, where it went all these stories down, and there were these giant pillars with a whole city underneath of it. it very well could have been harnessing energy, and that could have been why, we have what we have. So I'm going to throw back over to you, Panda, and let you kind of give your final thoughts, whatever, before this thing ends on us, and then, oh boy, you can do your shout outs and everything after that. So go ahead, dear.
Yeah. I honestly think that that's a good way to think. I mean, you never know what's out there. The world's unknown. There's so much that was created from just nothing. So, I mean, honestly, all you can do is just keep your mind open. Look into the world the way that it is. There's all these people that are just studying more and more, and it's worth it, because you never know what you're going to find out about the history of where we are or where we were years ago. Because the more that you learn, the more that you find out, it's better to keep that type of thing alive. I truly believe that, because to me, that type of thing matters, because I'm a very historical person. I love history. I'll talk about it all day long, but to keep in mind that all these things that are still here today, they haven't crumbled yet, and they're still there, but it matters, definitely.
Thank you for coming on, Brim. That's what I know her as, is Brim or Panda. So she was gonna her wife was gonna be on, but she had to work, so she had ended up not coming on. There was gonna be two of them today. That was what the show was gonna be, just so everybody knows. And she is married to Dragon. He's been on our show twice as a guest, and he was very, very awesome guy. We liked him, and now I got one of his wives on here now, and I want to thank you guys all from We're Screwed, and thank you for coming on here, Panda. And
Thank you for having me.
you're welcome, and thank you from Spotify and YouTube. This was a really interesting show because I thought it was going to be different, but it was cool because it ended up being paranormal anyway. But we can't call it staring. But it was a really cool show because they're very smart, and I knew that was going to happen. So and it went good. And I want to thank everybody. And if you guys want to check us out on James Hershey's YouTube page, just subscribe, check out all the shows. They're going to be on here. He'll put it on either the YouTube tomorrow, the next day, and it'll be on Spotify in a day or two, or whenever he gets to it, because sometimes he gets very busy. That being said, check us out. What is it? Teespring.com. If you guys want shirts, there's hats, posters. There's that thing he has in the back. He actually has a real thing of staring into the abyss. It's like it's like that in the back right there, a canvas. So you can get those with staring or We're Screwed. You can get No Face. That's the character. I'm really, like I said, guys. Thank you for all buying my books. Evil Without a Face. I much appreciate you guys. I love you guys because I'm trying to make him something special and it's working. And thank you all and have a good night, motherfuckers.
It's that wonderful, beautiful, fun moment when old boy forgets he has a digital background on and is pointing to something nobody can see behind him. Thank you for coming on, Panda. It was a fun discussion. I enjoyed it. We might have the other one on, her wife on as well at some point when she's free, and have her on for a show. I'm enjoying doing We're Screwed this way, just bringing different people on and just having conversations about whatever the hell they want to talk about. Because I'm a guy, I can talk about pretty much anything that I want because I read like 2 books a week. One fiction, one nonfiction every week of my life since I was born. Well, not born, but before I started school, I was already reading. Let's put it that way. And by the time they were
Right.
learning how to read, I was reading Mark Twain and Adventures of Huckleberry Finn and Tom Sawyer and all that cool shit.
Yes,
Love
the
and life,
good
you know what I mean?
ones.
So I can wax poetic on a lot of different subjects. So it's fun for me to be able to just talk about whatever the hell anybody wants to talk about and have good conversations with people. And this is a cool idea that I had to bring on normal people and just have good conversations, because we interview a lot of movie stars and like a lot of famous people and stuff like that, and it's fun. Don't get me wrong, I love those people. They're nice people, a lot of them, but it's always, oh, I got to promote this movie, I got to promote this book, so that's what you're centered on, is talking about whatever movies come out or whatever. I like just regular people you can just have a good conversation with, and I think if we did more of that in this world, that we wouldn't have all the problems we have. You know,
Absolutely.
we're taught to hate each other, and that because you worship this God, I worship that God, we got to not get along and hate each other, all that kind of shit. And I think if we ever just sat down and talked to each other, we'd realize we're all the fucking same. You know, we all just want a
Right.
better life for our children than we had. We just want peace and we just want happiness. You know, and if we could all just get on the same page and stop the nonsense, then I think there's no limit to what we could accomplish. You know, it's sad that we waste so much effort fighting with each other. It's stupid. It's absolutely dumb and senseless, and I just don't understand it, you know? And anyway, off my soapbox, I love you guys. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for watching. As always, like I always say, it's up to you to make up your own mind, and we'll catch you on the next one. Till we speak to you again. Love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye bye.
Thank you.